On lockdowns, it's interesting that I was reading in your book that around the 8th of March, you start to see what's going on in Italy. And I think we can all vividly remember those scenes from those Italian hospitals where there was patients in the corridors being pushed around on trolleys and there was not enough beds. And I think for me as well, that was one of the big moments where I realized, watching it actually play out on Twitter, that this was an incredibly serious situation, something that I'd never seen in my lifetime before. Was that the penny drop moment for you, that this wasn't just another bird flu or
I was very anxious about it because I knew the Italian healthcare system. I thought it was broadly excellent. And I remember when, one of our kids had fell into a swimming pool in Italy once, when everybody was having a lie-in, it's about the most shattering thing that, could ever happen to you. And the Italian pronto soccorso came, and they were unbelievably good. They were so fast. They were so. And I thought, if the Italians are having problems with this thing, and frankly, our population is about as elderly as theirs, then this could be very, very serious. So I think that did really register with me. And so if you look at and obviously I defer completely to the inquiry into all this under Dame Heather Hallett. But if you look at what happened from then on in, you see a series through March up till the 23rd of March, you see a series of intensifying steps to try to get people to take precautions.
what I observed, I saw that in the book, and you kind of have the stages that you break down, that you went through from that moment onwards. What I observed, though, and I think this is probably a fair estimation or a fair description of what happened, was there was indecision, because it seemed like there was facts coming from one ear, facts coming from the other ear, and there was almost a bit of paralysis. And when you look at the rest of the European numbers, which I was looking through yesterday, about when different sort of European markets made that decision, the UK appears to make the decision to lock down much slower than all the other European nations. Slower to close the schools, the shops and events seem to be later than our European counterparts. And Matt Hancock went on to say
But
that
don't forget, they were ahead of us in the epicurve anyway.
Mhm.
So they were. So you mentioned the Italian situation,
Yeah.
and they were already ahead of us, and we could see that we were going to have to bring in measures, but again, this will be for the inquiry to comment upon. But it's pretty clear to me that we couldn't reasonably have instituted these measures in the UK, which were novel and draconian, in advance of the scientific advice or opinion.
But on
And that's
point,
what it would have been.
them being ahead of us isn't relevant, because the chart I have here shows how many days it took us to take decisive action after the third death. And it shows that for all of the European nations. And when I was reading about the information you were getting from scientists on this end and from other people in politics, it was so contradictory that I think I was guessing that that's what caused the indecision, and also your own sort of philosophy towards shutting down
Well,
society.
we had this group called the Scientific Advisory Group on Emergencies, right? The
Yeah.
SAGE, and they were. So we were going to be led by the science, and we basically had to. I decided that we had to follow what SAGE advised, and for a long time, to your point, they hesitated about schools because of all the disbenefits. And if you remember, the argument was that if you went too early, then there was a risk that you'd have to keep doing it because the public would lose patience with the lockdown. And there was a secondary argument, which was there would then be bounce back. If you went too early and you kept on for you'd then take the measures off, and the virus would flare up again, which indeed did happen throughout the course of the pandemic. So the scientific advice was, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was particularly confused at that stage. I think it was they were struggling to assess exactly what to do, and there were different views within the scientists about certain things like
Matt Hancock said that we could have saved 30,000
Like
lives.
masks and so on.
Is that true? Matt Hancock said
You know, I
if
what
we'd
I
if we'd locked down earlier.
I can't say that for sure. I've no way of knowing that. But what I can say is that to have locked down earlier would have been to have gone beyond, to have anticipated scientific advice. It would not have been something. And I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a scientist. I was being asked to, what was on the agenda was imprisoning the whole UK population. It wasn't something the scientists were yet recommending.